You're watching Study with Sudhir. This is your digital classroom. My name is T.S. Sudhir. We are looking at a poem called the Ball Poem, which is part of First Flight, which is the NCERT textbook for CBSE class 10 students. Okay, now this particular poem written by John Berryman, you should always know the poet or the author's name. That is something very important, because sometimes a 1-mark question can come even to test you on that. So that's something very important, and there are quite a few poems and stories, even though the syllabus has been reduced a bit for 2021 students, but even then all of them you should be familiar with. Now what is this particular poem about? Now this is a very simple poem about a little boy who loses a ball. Now what is there about a boy losing a ball? What kind of a poem is this, you would wonder. But the poet has used the act of the boy losing the ball in the water to kind of make a larger point, okay, about earning, about a loss of possession, and what does this mean to the psyche, to the mind of the little boy. Okay, this poem is written in blank verse, which means essentially that there is no rhyming pattern as far as this particular poem is concerned. The poem is essentially about losing something which you love. Okay, the ball, as all of us have played with when we were little children, is something which we kind of love, that idea of possessing that ball, right? And it is part of our growing up in that sense, right? So this poem is about a little boy who for the first time in his life is learning what it is to experience grief, because a little boy or a little girl, when he or she loses a doll or a ball, it kind of, it seems like the ultimate tragedy, as it were, right? Because in that sense, because the ball or the doll is a very beloved, is a very precious, it's a very valuable possession. Value not in terms of money, but in terms of what is the association of the person with that particular toy. Okay, now that is as far as the theme of the poem is concerned. Now let's do a quick summary, and then we will come down to explaining the poem word to word. Now it's about a boy, as I said, who was playing with his ball. It was bouncing on the street and he was very happy enjoying the game, but suddenly it fell into the water and got lost. Now without the ball, obviously the boy immediately became a picture of extreme sorrow and grief, and the poet said that there were other balls and he could actually purchase another ball as well, because it wouldn't cost much and it was not such a great loss that the ball got lost in the water. But the ball was in the possession of that little boy for a very long time, and therefore there was a sense of attachment that he had developed with that particular ball, because there were memories associated of that little boy and his young mind with that particular ball. Okay, so it was linked to his memories, and memories are precious, memories are invaluable. The ball in terms of its price may not be very valuable, but the memories associated of the boy with that ball are indeed very precious, very invaluable, and therefore the poet thinks that it is of no use to purchase another ball, and the boy must feel the grief and the responsibility of the loss of that particular ball, which in many senses he was kind of losing a part of his memories which were associated with that particular ball. Okay, I hope it's clear. It's a very simple poem, but it making a very effective and a very pertinent kind of a point. What's the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. Okay, so we'll just break it down into 4 parts and explain the poem. Now the poem is about a little boy, because straight away is asking, what is the boy now? It's almost like a question, because right in the first line itself, you are told the fact of the loss of the ball by the boy. Okay, he loses his ball and watches it merrily bouncing the street and then going into the water. Okay, to us, he says no use to say, oh, there are other balls, because for adults like us, it's no big deal. We say that, oh, there are other balls. To us, therefore, the loss of a ball is of very little consequence. We don't really pay much attention to the loss of the ball and say that, there are other balls. But for the little boy, it was a very precious kind of possession, because the ball had been with him as part of his growing up years for a long time, and it was linked to the memories of the boy, the days that he had played with that particular ball, and therefore that made it, those memories is what made that particular ball so invaluable as far as that little boy was concerned. Okay, that's the first 5 sentences. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Harbor as in, the water area, right? I would not intrude on him a dime, another ball is worthless. Okay, the I is the poet speaking. It's almost as if the poet is an eyewitness to what was happening or what had happened. Okay, so he says the boy is obviously very troubled, very traumatized over the loss of his ball, and is very grieved. He plunges into grief, and he stands there stiff. Rigid means stiff, but he's also trembling, because the inside of his body, his mind is kind of trembling. He's kind of agitated, very unhappy, very upset. So that is causing a lot of his emotions are in a state of trembling. His body may be stiff, but his emotions, there is a lot of stuff going on in his mind and in his heart at that point in time. So it's a very interesting thing. You're rigid means you're stiff, but it also trembling. So it is the inside, the soul, the heart, the mind, which is kind of trembling. The emotions are going through an upheaval of sorts while he's looking at the ball which has been lost in the water. Okay, he's upset and he looks at that water because the ball had been with him for a long time. When the ball bounces into the water, all the memories of his childhood days kind of flash in front of him. All his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Okay, staring down all his young days. So he's thinking immediately of all the association that he had with that ball. Moreover, he says, I would not intrude on him a dime, another ball is worthless. Now, intrude essentially means to enter into a situation where you are not welcome. An intruder into the house means someone who is not welcome into the house. A thief is like an intruder into the house. Okay, so he says, does not offer him any money. The poet does not offer him any money to buy another ball because he believes that would be worthless. Okay, a dime is essentially equivalent to 10 cents. Okay, in the US. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls, balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. Okay, an important kind of a message which has been given in these lines by the poet. Okay, the boy cannot find the ball in the waters, and that's when he gets the first sense of responsibility that he should have been careful with the handling of his precious ball. And the poet is actually suggesting that with the loss of the ball, from the loss of the ball, the boy is actually learning what it means to lose something in this world. Because the ball was the possession, the property of the boy. So in that sense, there was a sense of loss. So this was his first time he was feeling what it means to lose something which is valuable to you. Okay, and he says when he will lose things in the future, he will buy some more to replace the ones which have been lost, but he would never be able to buy back the exact thing that he had lost. He would never be able to get the same thing back. He would never be able to get the same ball back in his life. He may be able to get a replacement, but it wouldn't be the same thing. And therefore, by saying this, the poet makes his boy understand about his responsibility. Okay, because the loss may be immaterial, the money is external. Okay, money is external. And why is money external? Because money cannot buy you memories. Okay, the memories of the boy are associated with the ball. So even if the money can be used to buy another ball, it cannot kind of get back the memories that are associated with the same ball, nor can it replace things which we actually love a lot, the things that really matter. So money, in that sense, its value is only that much. It can get you another ball, but it cannot get you the memories that are associated with the old ball, nor can it get back the same old ball. Okay. The final stanza, he is learning well behind his desperate eyes, desperate as I said, hopeless. The epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. Okay, so epistemology of loss means understanding the nature of loss, what it means to lose something. Now, this comes from the Greek word episteme, which means knowledge, and it comes from a word meaning to understand and to know, and it is a study of the nature of knowledge itself. So, it is a very deep kind of science. It is a study of the nature of knowledge, not just of knowledge, but the nature of knowledge, and that is what is being highlighted out here, that the poet is suggesting that from the loss of the ball, the boy is actually, even though he is very young in age, he is learning to stand up in a world of possessions. Okay, because he has now learned what it means to lose something, and the boy, the poet says, will eventually learn how to stand up and leave the losses behind, as he would have also understood the true meaning and the nature of the loss. Okay, how to stand up, that he will kind of, brush his clothes and kind of move on in life, because what you have lost is something which you can never be able to regain, and this applies to anyone. It applies to material possessions, it applies to people in our life who we lose in very tragic circumstances. We always take it for granted that these people will be there forever in my life, and then some tragedy occurs and we kind of lose the person. No money in the world can bring back that person. Sometimes a place which you owned kind of gets destroyed in a natural calamity, an earthquake, a fire, a floods. It can never get back, you can never get back that particular place back again, a shop, a house, a home, whatever. But you can use your money to buy another house, another shop, but the memories that are associated with that shop, with that house, you can never get any money to buy back those memories. So, it is in the same thing, the ball being used as a representative of what all it could mean. It could mean your parents, your siblings, your house, your shop, whatever you owned, whatever you think is your own. Okay, so that is what is really being suggested, and the poet has used a very young boy and a very commonplace toy to make a very larger point that applies to each one of us, that we need to learn what it is to lose something which we think is our possession, and what it means to then move forward in life. Okay, in the world of possessions, in that sense, is a very important kind of a phrase. Okay, the poetic devices which have been used, one of course is of symbolism. The ball is a symbol of the boy's young and innocent days. Okay, that's a very important poetic device. Then there is of course the repetition, what, the word what is used right from the beginning more than once. Balls is again used more than once. Alliteration, buys a ball back, balls, balls, what is all the poetic device of alliteration which has been used. Okay, so you can either get stanzas from the poem and you could be given questions asking you from there. For instance, there could be a longer kind of a question saying that he senses first responsibility, and this came in 2018. Okay, he senses first responsibility. What responsibility is referred to out here? Now, what could be a perfect answer to a question like this? The responsibility referred to out here is accepting the loss of something which is very dear to us. One should learn to get over the loss of losing something and move on, and this is the first taste of adversity of something which is undesirable waiting for you in this particular world, in this entire world as we grow up. Thus, we should keep in mind that if we don't take proper care of things which are very dear to us while it is in our possession, we would regret it deeply when we actually lose it. So, that is the meaning of his senses first responsibility. He has been made aware of what is it to lose something which is very dear to us. What is the deep hidden meaning in this particular poem? The deep meaning of the poem is that our childhood quickly flies as here a ball is lost. Also, we grow up and face hardships like the loss of a ball. As I said, the loss of a ball is only a symbolism of something which could happen to us at any point in life, as the different examples that I gave. What's a boy's state of mind when he loses the ball? He's obviously very disturbed. Okay, and he keeps staring at the ball with his desperate eyes. So please use words from the poem in order to highlight, because those will be the key words. Okay, all these words: staring, merrily bouncing, ultimate shaking grief, rigid trembling, okay, staring down, in a world of possessions. These are all key words and phrases from the poem which you should use. So you just underline it, just memorize it so that you can use it in your answers. Okay, so that's as far as this particular poem, the ball poem, is concerned. You need to understand fully, because that's a commonly made mistake in questions related to this poem, that students are unable to articulate the message that the poet has tried to convey in this poem. I do hope I have done justice to it and you have been able to understand what exactly is the gist and the messaging of this particular poem, because it has a very deep meaning, and the word responsibility that I mentioned, and I give you the perfect answer to that, it's a topper's answer, would give you an idea about how to frame your answers. You don't have to write a tome, but if you write concise, precise stuff, that's good enough for you to get 2 marks or 3 marks, whatever be the weightage of that particular question. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to Study with Sudhir for the entire English, Civics and History syllabus right here on this channel for CBSE Class 10 students. Thank you very much.